What's up everybody, Billy here, welcome back to the channel and another episode of Project Nemo Engine Swap. As you saw in the previous episode, Nemo was in poor health. Running rich, running poor, just not drivable at all. So I decided to take the 98 wiring harness off of the original engine and put it on my new replacement engine. Got that all swapped out, took it for a test drive, and still running rough. So in this episode, I take it another step further and decide to change the oxygen sensors. Let's see if that takes care of the problem. If not, I've got another trick up my sleeve. So without further ado, let's get going. So I decided to bite the bullet and I bought all 3 oxygen sensors for this truck. There's 2 upstream, 1 downstream. And according to the part numbers, they are left and right specific on the upstreams. So I made sure I marked my boxes, which one's left and which one's right. So I've got that. I also got on the internet and I compared 1998 and 2000 part numbers for just about everything that can attach to this engine sensor wise and see if there's any differences. Well, all the parts swap, pretty much everything swaps except for 2 things. The throttle position sensor and the idle air control valve were different part numbers. So I'm going to take the throttle body, which has the idle air control valve and the throttle position sensor already bolted onto it. And take that throttle body off. Got a new gasket to put it on this 2000 motor so that the 98 computers has the sensors from the 98 engine. Well, let's get to it. I'm tired of this truck being off the road. My daughter needs it back. I'd like to get it back on the road again. Let's get to it. All right, so I'm gonna switch gears for a minute, get my mind on something else because that oxygen sensor is just rounding out now. I've already cut the terminal off of it to try to get a socket over the top of it and everything, try to get a better bite. It's fighting me and it's making me very angry, so I'm taking a step away from it. Got the throttle body off of the 98 engine and worked on getting the gasket off of it and cleaned up. So this throttle position sensor and that idle air control valve appear to be a different part number than what was on the 98. It's probably not going to do anything, but just to get my mind off that for right now, I'm going to try to get this on here and come up with a plan B for getting that oxygen sensor off the passenger side. Get you in here and take a look at it. That's the oxygen sensor I'm trying to get at. Any wrench that I can get on there, this brake line is in the way, and then the A-arm support steel is in the way, so I can't get a good angle on it. As you can see, the points are starting to round out. I've already cut the wire to try to get a box end wrench down on it, and it's not budging. So that's the passenger side. Driver's side, or the downstream, it's right here, and it's doing the same thing. It's rounding off. Pipe's cooled down now. I can actually be down here without burning myself, but I'm gonna get a big boy on here and see if I can get this thing to come out. I'm tired of asking nicely. Well, that did the trick, getting the big old pipe wrench on it. So that was nice. I don't know if I'll be able to do that on the passenger side or not, but I'm gonna give it a try, get with a pipe wrench. The driver's side oxygen sensor is in, the downstream is in. We're still having a whale of a time trying to get the passenger side out. It's not coming, so we're gonna try to get a little torch, put some heat on it. The angle is impossible. The nut's stripped off. Can't get a socket on it. Can't get a wrench on it. Basically, reduced to using that.
One eternity later.
Well, praise the Lord, we got it out.
Finally!
We shredded it. We shredded it so that I can get a socket down on it. And I was able to finally twist on it. But you can see it stripped all the threads off of it. So it was spinning in there, but I couldn't get it to come out, which scared me, thinking that we've just stripped out the threads on that, but looks like we still have some threads in there. So I'm gonna try to thread the new one in and see if we can get this thing to bite. All right, so what we're running into an issue is these threads got stripped out. It did booger up the threads on that. So I took an old oxygen sensor that I had and I tried to run it in there and maybe try to chase the thread, get the threads to kind of realign. And all it was doing was boogering up the threads on the other oxygen sensor. So my father-in-law is looking in this plethora of tools to see if he can find some sort of a tap that would fit something that large. So that's what we're working on. I got the driver's side and the downstream oxygen sensors installed. This is the last one. Everything else is buttoned up. So that's what's keeping us from getting this job done right now. It's been a long day. Been here for several hours trying to get this thing out. Now that it's out, it's fighting us, wanting to put something back in it. So we'll keep after it and see what we get. All right, so I had to go to the store and grab one of these oxygen sensor thread chasers. It says to put some anti-seize lubricant on it, so I'll do that. Chase that hole, see if I can get this thing to go in. Well, it's been a few days since I attempted to use the O2 sensor chase tool. That went about as well as you might expect. It chewed up the first two threads on the chase and ruined it. So got on the interwebs and bought this Chinese 18 by 1.5 tap. So I'm in the vet. It snowed. It's nice. I'm gonna go over to my in-laws house and get back on the truck and see if I can get this O2 sensor cleaned out, re-tapped, threaded, just fixed. I need to get it fixed. Let's go. We're back up at the shop. Let's get to it. Get you in here. So I started the threads. Hopefully I'm going in straight because I really can't tell. Just twisting on it and it's biting and I can see some shavings coming out, so I think this is working, question mark. I'll keep after it, but I can already tell that I'm in a lot more threads than I was with the other tool that I had. I even know where it went. Try to show it to you. I may have chucked it for distance because I was really frustrated with it. Last time I was here, I was getting a little hot under the collar. I decided to just call it a day and just went home. So it's around here somewhere. The first couple of threads on it were just chewed up. It was definitely not a hardened steel product. So that's started, so we'll just keep after it. There was a stretch where it was kind of tight, but now I can kind of spin it with my hand. So I think it's gotten past the gnarly threads. So I'm gonna run it down just a little bit deeper and then try to see if I can get the oxygen sensor in. Seemed to do the trick. I got some shavings on here, at least. So I'm gonna get the oxygen sensor and see if I can get it to thread. All right, so I took one of the old ones that still had good threads on it, and I went into the bung there, and it threaded all the way down to the bottom, so it's working. So now I'm gonna take my good one and send her on down. Well, finally, the new oxygen sensor is in. Torque down. Next thing to do, I guess, is just to start her up and let her run for a little bit, see if it throws me any codes or runs rich or anything, because last time I was in here, which is last week, I put that throttle body on. So other than the fuel injectors, pretty much everything on here is sensors off of the old engine. I mean, except for the temperature sensor, the oil pressure sensor, and the crankshaft position sensor, that kind of stuff. But spark plugs, coil, wires, throttle, oxygen sensors are brand new. I mean, shouldn't be any reason why this thing would run rich anymore, but stranger things have happened. Grabbing the wheels, gonna get the wheels back on, set her back down, and crank on her, see what we get. Took it for a test drive. You can tell by the look on my face that didn't fix it.
Disappointed!
So what I'm gonna do next is replace all the fuel injectors. The fuel injectors on this 2000 engine were likely for a flex fuel truck, which it does have a flex fuel icon on the tailgate of that blue truck. So likely the fuel injectors are different for the 2000 than they are for the 98. I did confirm that by checking part numbers. For 2000, you can get the same fuel injectors you can on the 98, or you can get another fuel injector for flex fuel. My guess is these are the flex fuel injector, obviously, because the blue truck has a flex fuel logo on it. So I'm going to replace the fuel injectors. There's just too much fuel getting delivered in this engine. Brand new oxygen sensors did not fix it. Throttle body did not fix it with the control valve and the position sensor, throttle position sensor. So just keep whittling away at this thing. I'm going to put the new fuel injectors in it, so let's do that. Well, things have escalated. Got the intake plenum off because I'm going after this fuel system. I went to release the pressure out of that Schrader valve. It shot gas out for the 2 to 3 seconds, but it was not stopping. It just kept going. So I stopped and thought, well, that's weird. Did it again. I didn't think it was ever going to stop. It probably had 10 to 15, 20, I don't know, it felt like an hour. But there was just so much pressure in this fuel system. Way too much. So I think I've found my problem. There's just way too much pressure, too much fuel being delivered to the cylinders, which obviously I knew that because it was running rich. I don't know if it's the computer doing that, or if that fuel pressure regulator has gone bad, or if it's the fuel injectors or whatever. Here's the plenum off of the other truck, and here's the fuel rail off the other truck. I'm going to put this fuel rail on this block. So it's got one crossover tube. It's got the fuel pressure regulator right here rather than on the fuel rail. And there's no crossover tube in the back. However, there's a crossover tube in the back there. Obviously one in the front, and then the fuel pressure regulator is on the fuel rail itself. So I had to change out the vacuum lines. This is now the vacuum lines off of the 98. I just kept the 2000s one on there, obviously, because it didn't need to change it. But now I am, because I'm going to replace this fuel rail with the one out of the 98. I hope it swaps over. The fuel disconnect right there, this bright silver thing, I took that tool home weeks ago and I need it again. So I'm gonna have to go drive back home and then come back and try to get this worked on again. So I'll hit pause here for a second. I'm gonna go run home, get that tool, and then we'll work on getting this fuel system from the 98 on this 2000 block and pray that that all works. All right, so I'm back. Drove all the way home. Couldn't find it. Drove all the way back here, and it was in the truck the whole time. Anyway, got the fuel line disconnected down there. Now I'm gonna work on getting these two bolts holding the fuel rails on and get those worked out, and then clean up the surfaces and clean up everything and just make sure nothing falls in the combustion chamber. And then work on getting the old one put back in. All right, progress report. I got the 98 fuel system put in there. It was quite tricky to get this fuel line put back where it needed to be. But the 98 fuel injectors and fuel rail, fuel pressure regulator are all in this engine now. If this doesn't cure our fuel delivery problem, I don't know what to do next, but we already tested on the system to see if it'll hold pressure as far as no leaks or whatever. And grab this little screw here. All right, got a mouthful of gas, we're good. It's holding pressure. I didn't have any leaks in the fuel line there or at the fuel pressure regulator. So I think we're good to put this thing back together again. We're all put back together again. I got completely replaced the fuel system with the 98 fuel injectors, fuel rail, fuel line. Everything on this engine is from the original motor except for like the temperature sensor, the crankshaft position sensor, the camshaft position sensor. So everything else on here is original to the 98. Mass airflow sensor is the same as before. So we're gonna crank on it and see what we get. All right, let's twist on it and let it run and see if we got any fuel leaks or anything. No fuel leaks. We got a little bit of a coolant leak earlier when I was trying to get some of the stuff taken off. I had to crack open the coolant system off the intake manifold there, the upper intake manifold. So I got some coolant kind of dripped off the back of the engine, so that's going to smoke for a little bit. There's some coolant on the floor, but I think it's contained. Well, I'm going to go take it for a spin. Well, fellas, praise the Lord, it's fixed. So replacing the fuel rail, the fuel injectors, and the fuel line all in one kit there fixed the problem. I did happen to notice while I was looking for torque specs on my upper intake manifold, the plenum, they showed fuel pressures, and I looked that up. For a 98 regular Ranger, it was so many PSIs. And then for a 98 up flex fuel, it was a higher pressure. Didn't see that before, didn't notice the problem. That was my problem. It wasn't oxygen sensors, it wasn't mass airflow, none of that stuff. It was a fuel pressure regulator that was just too high rated for this particular application. Once we got that fixed, took it for a drive down the highway there, ran like a top. Praise the Lord, that is done. I think, hopefully, without further ado, this concludes the Nemo Dory engine swap for my 98 Ford Ranger 3-liter automatic. So it's been a long process. Only been able to work on this just maybe a couple nights a week and Saturdays. And it's been probably almost 2 months when I started this project to where it's ended. So glad this is done. Major relief. Praise the Lord, it's done. What's up, everybody? Just a little update here. Been driving the Nemo Ranger. No leaks or anything like that. Oil, coolant, and fuel are all staying in the engine like it's supposed to. It's been driving like nothing was ever wrong with the truck. So praise the Lord, the used engine replacement is so far so good. Just driving, contemplating this whole project. Started on October 27th, and I drove it home from my father-in-law's place on December 27th. So 2 months of time where this truck was off the road, and it's been a roller coaster. I've just been thinking about the pulling of the engines wasn't really necessarily that big of a deal per se. I mean, it was a lot of work, but putting them back in was a little tricky because I didn't put the transmission and engine in Nemo at the same time, bolted together, which hindsight, I wish I could have figured out a way to get that done, because that was a bit of a pain in the neck. There was a couple of moments where this truck was just fighting me, getting things back together, and obviously it was very frustrating. Come to think of it, looking back on the project, which would have made it a lot easier on myself, while I had both engines out, I should have just swapped everything over, sensor-wise, fuel system, all that stuff, while it was out. Would have made it a lot easier, wire harness, all that stuff off the engines. Tried to cut a corner and get this done quicker. Hindsight, it cost me some time there. Now that the truck is back together and running good, it's work. I'm so happy to have my truck back. So thinking about it last night, I think I've got probably $800 to $900 in this whole thing, which is better than the $6,600 they quoted me to replace the engine at the shop I took it to. So again, just super thankful to my father-in-law, my wife, my mother-in-law, my sister-in-law, all their patience and long suffering with this project. And obviously my daughter is over the moon, happy to have her truck back. So once again, thanks for watching, and appreciate your support for the channel. I'm going to toss in here to this Chick-fil-A, grab some lunch. You guys enjoy your day. Appreciate you very much. God bless. We'll see you next time.